the Buddha Hall so that everybody can participate, bringing the puja to the Buddha Hall. How are you? Oh, how are you? Thanks. Me. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Iti so bhagava samma sambuddho vijayana sampanno sutato lokavittu anuttaro purisadhamma sarati sattadeva sarati. Iti so bhagava samma sambuddho vijayana sampanno sutato lokavittu anuttaro purisadhamma sarati sattadeva sarati. Iti so bhagava samma sambuddho vijayana sampanno sutato lokavittu anuttaro purisadhamma sarati sattadeva Iti so bhagava samma sambuddho vijayana sampanno sutato lokavittu anuttaro purisadhamma sarati sattadeva Buddho bhagavati iti so bhagava samma sambuddho vijayana sutato lokavittu anuttaro purisadhamma sarati sattadeva manussya bhagavati iti so bhagava samma sambuddho vijayana sutato lokavittu anuttaro purisadhamma sarati sattadeva manussya Buddho bhagavati iti so bhagava samma sambuddho vijayana sampanno sutato lokavittu anuttaro purisadhamma sarati sattadeva manussya Buddho bhagavati. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Please come inside and please be seated. if you cannot sit on the pillows, you can grab a small chair. Over there are some stools. You can take one and sit. You have more pillows there. मम्मी कल्पना करे वयस्क मनुष्य वादियों तीनों sorry. Yeah. Please say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Chandima, ne Hamdul Vadam. Good evening, everybody. Today, the monk who is going to conduct the Dharma talk is Venerable Sanatha Vihari from Sanatha Buddhist Center in Los Angeles. Actually, he's an American monk. Okay. He ordained not long ago, I think about 10 years, Bhante?
Bhante, 2018 in Mahargama.
2018, not even 10 years, right? So, yeah, in Sri Lanka, he became one of the very renowned temple, very famous temple, spiritual temple in Sri Lanka. The head monk of that temple, who actually is passed now, is the monk who came to America, Sri Lankan monk who came to America first, which is the first temple in Washington DC. So this monk is descending from that temple. Okay. So before he became a monk, I think he was in the
Air Force.
Air Force. Yeah. So when he go fly, he go to the airport. He doesn't have to stay here. That's a lot of privileges. Okay. Very good monk and a very knowledgeable monk, young monk, and he always like to invite him when we have Dharma sermons. So in parallel to the Katina ceremony, which is going to happen on the 8th and 9th of next month. And we have all the sponsors here, the sponsors this time, Kosala and Priyanka, and Josephine, and Dean and Tran with Sanatha. And there is, the little girl here, very important girl, Eva, right? She's meditating too. Every night she meditates about 5 minutes, right? Okay, so they are the sponsors. During the Katina time, Vassana retreat, we try to have as many as spiritual performances in the temple. At least 1 or 2 Dharma talks, and then at least puja, chanting, etc. So today is the last Dharma talk that we have for this cutting ceremony. In about 2-3 weeks, we are going to have the main role profaning ceremony that will be had. That's the most merit making ceremony in Buddhist order, its order, Katina Jiva Puja. So monks were observing Vassa retreat for 3 months. We ended it yesterday. Now we are free. So we did not break any of the monks, did not take the retreat. We observed it well. And we are very happy we hear a lot of positivity during these 3 months. And also we try to help our devotees also to grow their spirituality, to grow. And this is also something that you can get knowledge about Dharma. So we need knowledge. More we know about the Buddha, more we have respect towards him. To know Buddha, we need to know Dharma. Only through his teachings, only through his Dharma, we can know Buddha. We can see Buddha. Right? If you know Dharma well, you will have lot of faith, lot of respect towards Buddha. Recently, I watched a YouTube clip. Nobel nominee is an old gentleman in England, and he was interviewed by one person, and he asked that what is he is learning Dharma, Buddha's teaching about 5-6 years now. Now he's very impressed, and he says that he could have done it earlier. He had that opportunity. He'd be very fortunate. And the interviewer, he asked, what do you impressed about it? What do you like most about it? He said, I am shocked. Actually, what the word that he used it, I was blown out when I read about how the Buddha analyzed, Buddha was explaining about mind. His metaphysical Dhamma, we call it deep Dhamma or Abhidhamma. When it comes to Abhidhamma, that nobody knows, unless the scientists or the people who are observing or who are analyzing the body, right? But Buddha, without even touching anybody's body, he knew how we see, how we taste, how we feel, right? he says that it is going with science. It's science. Is in deep Dharma, when Buddha explaining about how we see, inside eyes, Buddha explained, this is Buddha's way. Inside eyes, we call that Monica. Inside that Vodera, there are some receptacles, like dishes, certain dishes. And the color only, we see the color only, right? We don't see the picture. Now, if you see that, this is I only see his colors, different colors in different shapes, here and there, little bit darker, little bit lighter. So that's how I figure out how he is, right? Only we see the colors, we don't see the form, right? So when the color, when we receive the color, that this internalize and brain process, and then we figure out this is what it is. So Buddha said 2,500 years ago. 2,500 years. So he said, I was blown out when I read how he has explained this. Right? So more we know about Dharma, more we know about Buddha's teaching, more we know Buddha. Then we have a lot of responsibility, right? So the Dharma gives us a lot of happiness, a lot of joy, and also Dharma teaches us the way how we should live our lives. When we are facing worldly vicissitudes, issues, stress, problems. If you know Dhamma, you have a lot of good from Dhamma without asking from anybody. Our brain, our mind process itself and find solutions. That is how it is. Only people, those who have the knowledge that Dhamma and also have the ability to understand the reality, how the world is, how the things are, then they have more abilities, more capabilities to live a happy life, facing all these issues and problems. So it's very important. Listening is one way, reading is one, right? And also contemplating is another way. Listening, reading, and with all the information that we have, we contemplate and have Chintamepani. So the knowledge, the wisdom that you get by contemplating, but by thinking, by analyzing. So for that, we need to listen. We need to listen. We need to know. So this is one of the time that we have that opportunity. Okay, so without taking time, I respectfully invite Honorable Mark to give you his Dhamma talk. Thank you very much. Please say sadhu, sadhu.
So first and foremost, I'm paying my respects to Sokohandru here to the Vihara for this invitation. And with his permission and the permission of the other monks here residing at Tuti Vihara, I'd like to give my Dhamma talk, Dhamma Desana. But before I begin, I will pay my respects to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato Samma Sambuddhassa. I'm so happy to be back. After I think I was here in March. Yeah, I came in March and I was looking for a place to stay. I had no place to stay because I was going to go to a Buddhist conference, and luckily enough, Bhante, he said, "Yeah, you can stay here." So it was kind of unexpected, and I'm so grateful that I had a place to stay coming back from Australia and going to a very important Buddhist memorial service that happened. Well, I forget the name of the town, but it was to remember a very unfortunate and dark time in U.S. history when a whole town of Chinese Americans, Chinese immigrants were burned. The whole town was burned down, and many Chinese immigrants were burned. And then finally, I think a year or two ago, that city, the mayor, wanted to remember them, and they built like a memorial for them, and a bunch of Buddhist leaders went there to be a part of that, to recognize the Chinese Buddhist / Taoist community that was there a long time ago, but had to leave due to racial discrimination and prejudice. So, yeah, so that's why I was here last time, and I last minute after Bhante Tandima asked me to give a talk that time. I didn't have anything planned, so I just had to come up with it. And I think some of you were here at that kind of talk. So yeah, I came here also the year before. So I've been coming here, I think, for the last couple of years. And then I didn't come for a long time because of COVID, right? I wasn't able to come, but I'm always so happy to come here. I love seeing, I don't have a good word for it, but I love seeing like mixed sangha, like where you have people from different places. Because most of the time I go to Thai temple, only Thai people. I go to Sri Lankan temple, only Sri Lanka people, And it's always like that. But when you see like this today, if you look around, wow, this is amazing. This is so beautiful that we can do this here. It's a very unique temple. There's very few temples that are like this. I know maybe one in Washington that's like half Cambodian and like half Sri Lankan. But it's very few. Most of the temples is like by the country and stuff. So this is very beautiful. I think this is the future of American Buddhism right here. Bhante has the future. They're making the future here of what Buddhism is going to look like in America. So I'm so happy to be here with the pioneers of future Buddhism. And I like to excuse myself because I forget my Dharma talks, so I don't remember what I talked about last time. So if I talk about the same thing, please excuse me. I beg your forgiveness for talking about the same thing. But there's a famous saying in Theravada Buddhism. It says that the Buddha only taught two things, right? He taught dukkha and the end of dukkha, like suffering and the end of suffering. So it's okay if it was good enough for the Buddha was always repeating himself, then I have permission to repeat myself too, right? So it's but yeah, so most of the time when I'm invited to give talks, it's oh Bhante, my kids are coming. Can you talk to my kids? They really need your guidance. I'm like, oh, how old are they? Are they in middle school and high school? Oh no, they're like 30 years old. I'm like, oh, it's not your kids. Yeah, but yeah. So most of the time when I'm invited is to talk in English, right, and to talk to the new generation of people. And I first started doing this when I was 30 years old. So at that time, maybe I can get away with it. I'm about to be 40 soon, so I don't know how long I can keep talking to the young people. I don't know what's going on, but luckily enough, I have a little brother. He's 19, so he lets me know about like Roblox and Fortnite and Call of Duty and all those things. So like Minecraft, so I kind of keep up a little bit thanks to him. So he really helped me out. Yeah. So today I wanted to talk about the very basic and core teachings of the Buddha. Sometimes we try to go too advanced. Right? We try to go into the deep Dhamma, as Bhante talked about earlier, the Abhidhamma, right? The deep Dhamma, or the high Dhamma. Sometimes we want to just do deep meditation too, right? But we need to set up a good foundation. So if we're going to build a house, we need to make sure that we have a good foundation. If you want to learn a new language, first you need to learn your ABCs, right? And your 1, 2, 3s, and the colors, and all these kind of things. So sometimes we don't pay attention to these things. Right? We take them for granted, just like our loved ones, our mom and dad, we take them for granted. That's sort of like this. I have to say that. So we take a lot of things for granted, right? I'm gonna tell you about dukkha, I'm gonna tell you about suffering and nirvana, and you're gonna be like, oh, I know these things. But it's good to remember them. Because sometimes we get too caught up in abstract ideas. Buddhism becomes too abstract, it becomes too philosophical. And I think we need to have a basic understanding of the unique teaching of the Buddha. Right? His unique contribution. So today I'm just going to be talking about one thing,
but divided into two parts. One is the Four Noble Truths, right? And the Eightfold Path. So those of you that know the Four Noble, what these things are, you know that the Eightfold Path is actually the Fourth Noble Truth, right? So it's all together, it's all one thing. But this is the knowledge that is said that the Buddha discovered under the Bodhi tree, right? So there's a Bodhi tree outside. So under that Bodhi tree, but in Bodh Gaya, in India, over 2,500 years ago, the Buddha came to this realization by himself through his own experiential knowledge, right? He wasn't like relying on someone else. He wasn't like doing magic, and he wasn't trying to get there logically and trying to figure out a formula, but through his own experience, he saw this is how suffering arises and how suffering ceases. So, the first noble truth of the Chattari Ariya Sachani. Chattari means four in Pali. Ariya means usually translated as noble, but I don't think that's good, you know? We're not talking about lords or knights. We're not talking about a royal family. Ariya actually means someone who's gone beyond the human level. So when we talk about Aryas, like in India, whether it's in Hinduism or in Buddhism or in Jainism or in any Indian religion, Arya always means like otherworldly, super people, supermen, right? Someone who's not a human being anymore, people that go beyond that. So I don't think noble really catches that. So Arya is more like something super, beyond, right? And Sachani means truth or reality. This word can mean many things, but it means something like truth or reality, right? So the four realities of this world, the four realities of your life, the four realities of existence that every person, every being experiences, right? And the first one you don't need to be a Buddha to figure it out. Suffering, right? You know suffering, right? When they don't get you what you want at Target, they don't like the ticket. Or you can't order something on Amazon, or they don't go through the Starbucks drive-thru and you can't get your Frappuccino, right? That is dukkha. That is suffering. You don't, even animals know suffering, right? You don't have to teach an animal to suffer or what suffering is, they know it. So, but what makes it noble? What makes it noble? Understanding suffering, right? Understanding suffering. Suffering also is too dramatic, right? It sounds very dramatic. Some people say, I don't suffer, Bhante. I don't have, you know, suffering is like when people die or some tragedy or your boyfriend or girlfriend broke up with you. That's suffering. I don't know suffering. Maybe kids, they say, I don't know suffering, Bhante. Why should I care about dukkha? But dukkha actually means like to be unsatisfied, unsatisfactoriness, right? That there's always something missing, right? No matter, as soon as you get the new phone, as soon as you get the new car, as soon as you get the new partner, it's not the same anymore, right? So when you go buy a new car, the moment you buy it and take it off the lot, you lost some of the money. Oh, that's dukkha, right? You lost a lot of the value. Right? The first bite of chocolate is delicious. Second bite, it's not the same. Right? When you first get to your vacation, you go to Hawaii, you go to Thailand, you go somewhere nice. As soon as you get there, it's so great. But the next day, you're probably tired from the trip, or maybe you have a hangover. Then it's not so nice, right? The dukkha. So as soon as we get something, right? As soon as you have it, it fades from your hands. That instant pleasure goes away. That is the dukkha, right? Many of you who have graduated, you know this, right? You go to university, you get your bachelor's degree, you're so excited, you get it, and then what's next, right? Maybe you're working at Starbucks the next day or something like that. Nothing changed. For the same moment, that one moment you felt good, but then you hope next time it'll be better. So I'm gonna go get a master's degree. I'm gonna get a master's degree. You get it, you feel good for that day, the next day you wake up, still in your house, same room, everything. Nothing's changed, dukkha, right? Oh, if I can only find that special person in my life. And once they start living with you and they have their messiness all over the house, then again, that great love you had for that person begins to diminish, right? So no matter what we do, it'll never be perfect, right? We're always chasing. There's that unsatisfactoriness of things are always slipping through our fingers, like grabbing sand and going through your fingers, like grabbing water and slipping through your fingers. That is what we mean by dukkha. That throughout life, there is nothing that will bring you permanent satisfaction. Right? That's what we mean about dukkha. And then usually the Buddha talks about birth. Birth is dukkha. Has anyone seen birth? There's a lot of pain involved, right? It's very difficult. I think that's why children, you know, that's why we were designed through evolution not to remember. Because if you were to remember, it would be probably pretty traumatic to remember it coming out of the womb. That's pretty traumatic for the parents, I think. Also to go through that experience. So birth is dukkha. Why is it birth dukkha? Because birth itself is the condition for suffering. Those who are never born will never suffer. Only those who are born suffer. That's why Buddhists are trying to escape birth, right? That's the whole point of Buddhism, to escape birth, not to escape death. Death comes for everyone. There's no way to get around it. But if you can be free from birth, that's the real freedom, right? So freedom from birth, then freedom from old age. No one likes to get old except for kids, right? Because they tell their parents, when I'm an adult, I'm gonna move out, mom, and I'm gonna have my own car, and I'm gonna do what I want. But as soon as they get to move out and they have to pay their bills, then they want mom to pay the bills and dad to pay the bills. They're not so happy to be adults anymore. So cherish your time as children. It's a good time. You have no worries, no bills. So yes, this is old age, right? Especially for everyone else. Every day you look in the mirror when you wake up, you don't see that young face that you saw, right? When you were 20, 21, in the prime of youth. You're unsatisfied. And we try to do things, right? Try to do things to look nice, and we exercise, and we have the right skincare routine, and we eat nice, and we dress up nice, and we do all these things because we can't face the reality. We can't accept it that we're getting old. That's also suffering, right? And with age comes like knee pain, arthritis, all kinds of other stuff going on. Every old person has some sort of problem with their body. It's rare to find someone who doesn't have something going on with their body. And then what else? The Buddha says sickness. Once again, no one likes getting sick except for kids. Why do they like getting sick? No school, yeah. So kids do want to get old and they do want to get sick, but you'll grow out of it. Trust me, later you won't want to get sick and you won't want to get any older. So yes, nobody likes sickness, right? Remember when we were in COVID and as soon as you feel a little sore throat or you think, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. That shows you that, no one likes to be sick. If you're traveling, right, and you feel a little stomach ache, like sometimes I'm traveling throughout the world, then I worry, what's going to happen next, Am I going to be able to keep traveling or am I going to have diarrhea for the next couple of days, right? No one likes to get sick. That's also suffering. Everyone suffers from sickness. That's dukkha. Then the Buddha talks about death, which is obvious, right? No one wants to die. We don't even want to think about it. I remember when I was a kid and I would tell my mom, what if my grandma dies or what if I die? Shh, don't say that. Don't talk about that. No, it's bad luck to talk about death. But that's something that we know 100% is going to happen to everyone. That's how scared we are of this suffering, that we hide it, especially here in the US and Western countries. As soon as someone dies, we put them in a freezer somewhere, right? Then we make them look nice so we don't see that they're actually dead. And then we put them in the ground. Never see them. But when I was in Cambodia and Vietnam, the person dies, the temple, they have the place to burn the body right there. You see the body right away and they burn it. Everyone knows death. All the children are there. Everyone knows what death is. It's nothing surprising. Right? The animals on the farm, they die right in front of them. Death is something normal to them. They understand it. But here, we don't want to think about death. I'll never die. Young people say, I don't die. Other people die. And that's why we end up with bad health conditions like diabetes or cholesterol, right? Other people will get diabetes. Other people will get cholesterol, not me. Right, I'm gonna keep enjoying my Coca-Cola and my desserts and all these other kind of things, boba iced tea. Other people get diabetes, not me. Because we don't realize that we too will die. This will also happen to us. There's no one who has been able to escape physical death. Physical death. Every being, every organism, every cell, right, has to pass away. Even like inorganic, just like regular material things will also go through this process of decay. Metal rust, right? You see this planet over some time will lose its heat if it doesn't get swallowed up by the sun. So everything is subject to death. Maybe not a literal death like living beings, but everything will get destroyed. Nothing can escape it. But we don't accept this, so that's why partially why we suffer. Then the Buddha says, a favorite one, not getting what you want. That's why we suffer. That's another one, right? And that's one that we all know. None of us get what we want all the time, right? It's difficult for us to get what we want. We try so hard our entire lives to get what we want. We can't get much of it. There's so many obstacles. And that's why we suffer, right? We think, like I said earlier, if I only get this, then I'll be happy. If I get this, I'll be happy. If I do that, I'll be happy. If I get this title, I'll be happy. If I get that person, I'll be happy. If I move to the US, I'll be happy. Many of you that moved here, are you 100% happy now? Sometimes you might think, man, maybe I was better off back there. No, there's not all these big headaches, right? When you go visit your family, they're so chill back there. They're just like hanging out all day. And then you come here and you're just running around. You don't even have time to see your own kids. Right? So not getting what you want, the Buddha says, is also suffering. He says, getting what you don't want, like that annoying coworker, right? Or have you sit next to that jerk the whole day, right? Or maybe your partner now, I don't know, right? Your husband or wife after many years. Like, I don't want this person anymore, right? Getting what you don't want. Also, like having to work in a difficult place, right? Or having to do chores, the children, that's getting what they don't want. Having to take out the trash, having to clean, having to do your own laundry, having to do the dishes. We would prefer not to. I would prefer not to do those things, but we have to do the things that we don't want to do. That is also suffering. And then here's another very difficult one. The Buddha says that losing what you love, that's also suffering. Mom and dad, right? Children, grandparents, that's also suffering. But like my mom told me, don't even think about it. Don't say anything. We're not allowed to talk about it. It's bad luck. So we try to deny all these truths to ourselves, right? We don't want to focus that we're going to get sick, that we're going to get old, that we're going to die, that we're not going to get what we want, that we're going to get what we don't want, and then we're going to lose what we love. But you're going to have to face them one day. It's going to come for you. Will you be ready? Right? So in the beginning, we start with suffering, with dukkha. There's so much emphasis on dukkha. It's not that the Buddha's negative. He's not pessimistic, right? He doesn't want you to give up. He's not saying that everything has to be suffering. He's saying, hey, but if you don't know about suffering, you're going to suffer. If you deny reality to yourself, right? Satcha, reality, the truth, then you're going to suffer. According to Buddhism, we suffer because of ignorance, right? Not necessarily lack of knowledge, because we all are very well educated, most of us, but wanting to accept that knowledge, right? We know it. We've studied it, but we don't take it in. We just study for the test. Once the test is done, then we throw it out. I don't need that thing anymore. I don't need to memorize that anymore. So we need to accept this knowledge. We need to accept the truth of the world, that nothing will last. Anicca bhata sankhara. All things, all compounded things will fall apart. That is their nature. Things that come together have to be separated. Right? This house came together. One day, it will fall down. We came together with our family members. We came together as a Sangha here tonight. We will also have to be separated one day and permanently. Right? This is the dukkha that we're talking about. But the Buddha is teaching us about dukkha because he wants us to understand this suffering so we can be free from suffering. So Buddhism is not like a negative worldview, right? Sometimes people look at Buddhists and they say, oh, they're so negative, always talking about suffering and death and not getting what you want. It's so negative. I hear kids say that sometimes to me in Dharma school. Why is Buddhism so negative? We're always talking about suffering. But the real power of Buddhism, the real message that the Buddha came to give us was the power of sukha. Sukha means happiness, right? Freedom from suffering. That is sukha, that's happiness. Right? So then in order to reach that level of being free from suffering, we have to understand the second noble truth, which is, what is the origin of the suffering? Where is the suffering coming from? I know where it's coming from. This person right here. This is the source of my problem. That person on the television is the source of my problem, right? It's always somewhere over there, right? The neighbor's the source of my problem. My partner's the source of that politician's the source of my problem. The job's the source of my problem. The school's the source of my problem. But no, the Buddha says no. It's not the root cause. It's the proximate cause, but not the root cause of our suffering. He says that it's tanha. So tanha, usually in English, they translate it as desire. But desire is not a good translation because tanha comes from the Sanskrit word Krishna. Krishna means thirst, right? So does anyone just like wake up in the morning and decide to be thirsty? No. So it's not a desire that you have, right? It's not something that you wish for. It's something that what? Happens to you. Like an impulse. All of a sudden you're thirsty. All of a sudden you're hungry. All of a sudden you got to go to the bathroom, right? You feel it. It just happens. You don't know about it. It's just happening to you. That is tanha. That is the source of our suffering, right? Unconsciously, we're going about the day doing things without knowing. We say something and then, why did I say that? You make a turn, oh, I shouldn't have turned here. Right? So many mistakes, so many unskillful actions, so much unnecessary suffering. Because we're not aware of our impulses, right? Aware of this urge that we have. And the Buddha says there's three main urges. There's three main sources of tanha. One is the greedy urge, right? I want this. I need this. Yes. But it's not necessarily the kids. If you see your parents on Amazon, they're doing the same thing. They want to order all these things too, right? So it's this wanting that makes us suffer all the time because we can't satisfy all of our wants. We can't satisfy them. It's impossible. Even if you were to have all the money in the world, right? Where are you going to keep all those things? How long are they going to last? Maybe some things they won't sell to you. There's some things that are illegal that you might want. There's some things that are available only in other countries, right? That person may not want to sell it to you. So we suffer. Much of our suffering is because we're greedy. We cling to being young. We cling to being healthy. We cling to life. We cling to things always being the way we want them to be. We cling to not experiencing difficult experiences, and we cling to not letting go of the things that we love. To bring it back to the 7 things that I said that are suffering, right? We cling to these things. We want them. We desire them, and that's how we suffer. But as I said earlier, no one here will be able to escape these things. It's going to happen to everyone. So this is the first tanha, the first urge or desire that makes us suffer. Our greedy minds are wanting, are desiring, are coveting, wanting all these things. How many wars in the world have started from greed? Pretty much all of them, I think, right? A lot of it. How many of the problems today in society start from greed? People hoarding resources, not wanting to share because they want more. Right? How many marital problems start from greed, right? This person's not good enough, I want this other person too. Right? So this greed, this impulse that we have is the source of our suffering, the origin of suffering. Then is the other side, the impulse of, I hate it, I don't want it, aversion. Right? As soon as you see it, you see that coworker, you already have that feeling, right? They don't even have to say anything. You already have that feeling. As soon as that person comes on the news, I can't even see that person, right? That feeling that you get that you don't like something. That's another source of our suffering because we're going to have to come across people and situations and things that we don't like, right? We can't let our happiness be dependent on what other people are doing. We can't let our happiness be dependent on other things that are out of control in our life. If you decide to do that, you're going to experience a lot of suffering, right? Because you're always going to be disappointed. Because you're always going to have to come across these people one day or another. There's many people who never leave their home. Maybe they're very lucky. They're like digital nomads. They can just work at home. Now, a lot of people work at home too. But even at home, you'll get to experience so many things that you don't want. You have some plumbing issue. Maybe your landlord is mean to you. Maybe your neighbor's mean to you. Maybe you start doom scrolling and you see all these things and you start hating the world and that it's all corrupt and we're in the apocalypse and World War III is coming. That aversion, right, that you have, that's also why we suffer. We see something, we don't like it, we push it away, and we can't accept. We can't confront those things that bother us. And the other reason that we suffer is because we try to run away from everything. We try to get away. That's the vibhava tanha. Usually is explained as like not wanting to exist. But that just means not wanting to be with those things. Not wanting to experience those things at all. To just run away, get away from it all. And I've seen this actually for many people who go to monasteries, lay people and monks, right? A lot of difficult things happen in their life, and they think that their solution is to run away. If I go to the jungles in Thailand, in the monastery, I'll be free from my suffering. If I go to Nepal and I go to the Tibetan monastery, I'll be free from my suffering. But guess what? There's a big problem there. Wherever you go, guess who comes with you? You. You take all your memories, all that stuff in your head with you, all your emotions. You can't disappear. You cannot non-exist. You'll never find that non-existence as long as you're alive. So once again, you're setting yourself for failure. Wherever you go, you're gonna have to face all the problems. There's no running away, there's no disappearing. There's a sutta called the Rohitasa Sutta, and there was one like yogi with psychic powers who tried to run away from all his problems, traveling at the speed of light for 100 years. And he told the Buddha, I was never able to find a place where there is no suffering. There's nowhere to run away. The Buddha says, you're right. I also know too that there's nowhere you can run away to. But it's not until you find the end of the world that you can be free from suffering. And then this yogi was confused. He's like, well, you told me there's nowhere to go, that there's no end of the world. So what do you mean by end of the world? He goes, oh no, the end of suffering is not out there. It's not in Maui, right? It's not in Fiji. It's not out there. The end of suffering is in here, the Buddha says, in this body. So you're able to overcome all your suffering. You're able to overcome all these things that bring the greed, the anger, and the delusion, right? The wanting, the pushing away, and not wanting to be, not wanting to deal with it. It's all in here. Right? That doesn't mean that things on the outside don't contribute to that, right? They do. There's people who unnecessarily make life difficult and who bring a lot of misery into the world. But for the most part, most of our suffering, for those of us that live here, especially in the United States and this part of the United States, a lot of our suffering is unnecessary. It's very much mental, right? We make the suffering because we start comparing ourselves to a possible future of how things should be, or comparing our lives to our neighbors or to celebrities on TV and things like that, and that's why we suffer. So suffering is something that we can work through and something that we can eliminate if we understand the origin and we don't give into the origin of suffering. And so what do we do once we get rid of the suffering and the cause of our suffering? Then here comes the good news of the Buddha, called Nibbana, Nirvana. All of you have heard of Nirvana, right? You've heard of Nirvana? Have you heard of Nirvana, young lady? Yeah? Nibbana? Yeah, so they asked the Buddha one time, what is Nirvana? He said, Nibbanam paramam sukham. Nibbanam, Nirvana, paramam, highest, sukham, happiness. Nirvana is the highest happiness. So actually, Buddhists are looking to be happy. Forever happy. Right? The end of all dukkha, the end of all the origin of suffering. What does that leave? Just happiness forever. So Buddhists are not negative people. We're just really focusing in on the problem, the origin of the problem, and getting rid of the origin of the problem so we can be happy. So the Buddha actually wants everyone to be happy, everyone to be free from suffering. Right? And the Buddha believes in you because he says every human being has the potential to be free from suffering, right? Buddha can't free you from your suffering, right? He can't do that. If he could, he would have done it. But he's not the one causing your suffering. So how can you take it away? It is you yourself who's causing the suffering, right? So yes, many difficult things happen from the outside, but our response, right? Our relationship to those things that happen out in the world and in our body, that is under our control. And then, how do we do this? Okay, how do we get rid of the origin of suffering? How do we get rid of suffering? How do we get to nirvana? Here's where we get into the Noble Eightfold Path. So just like when you probably, if you've never been here before, or if you were trying to get somewhere new today, you use your GPS, right? And it gave you turn-by-turn directions, and it gave you instructions how to get there. The Buddha also gave us directions to remove our suffering and to reach the highest happiness, which is nirvana. And it's only 8 steps, right? It's not a long list of things. If you look at all the suttas, there's thousands of teachings from the Buddha, thousands of sermons. And then people get overwhelmed. They're like, oh, wow, that's so much, Bhante. There's no way I can study all of that. You don't need to study all of that. Because remember, I said in the beginning, the Buddha only taught 2 things. There's suffering and the end of suffering. One time a monk was going to quit. He's like, I don't want to be a monk anymore. Too many rules, too many things to do, too many things to learn. I'm going to give up. The Buddha said, can you practice 3 things? Bhante, we have all these things to practice. 3 things is nothing. Of course I can practice 3 things. Will you stay as a monk if I only tell you you need to practice 3 things? Of course I'll stay. 3 things is so easy. Anyone can do it. He said, don't do any bad, do good, and purify your mind. This is the teaching of all the Buddhas. Can you do these 3 things? Right? Very simple. Well, how do we do it? Through these 8 steps, right? So luckily enough, you already know the first step. The first step is to come to terms with reality, called samadhi, right view. You have to look at reality the way it is, right? That you're not always going to be able to get your way, that things are always changing, that things arise and they cease, that things are impermanent. You won't find any permanent satisfaction in any person, any place, any time. That doesn't mean we can't have a good time. Everyone here has had a good time, right? That doesn't mean we don't have happiness in our life. We do. But you can't find a permanent one, a lasting one. That's what the Buddha is trying to offer you. He's trying to offer you something more than a taste, than a bite, than a sip, than a spa, than a vacation, than a song to hear. Some long-lasting happiness is what he's trying to offer you, right? And this comes by understanding the Four Noble Truths. That's the first step. So right view is coming to terms with reality, that all things are impermanent, that because they're impermanent, they're unsatisfactory, and because things are always changing, and they're changing in a way that we don't like, then it's not worth to personalize or identify with any of these things. That's called anatta. Sometimes when we say no self, people get confused. But no self really just means not to personalize things, not to identify with things. Right? Because if we identify with something, if we personalize something, that means we're invested in it. You wouldn't invest in a company, you wouldn't invest in a stock that you knew that tomorrow was gonna, not make it. You wouldn't do it. You know what? I'm not gonna make any money. So the Buddha said the same thing. You know what? All these things, worldly things that you're investing in, at the end of the day, it's not going to turn out. So don't identify with that. Don't invest in that. Don't take it personally. That is the no self. This is all right view. This is all the same thing. These are the things that we need to come to terms with to be able to progress in the right path. Today, there's a lot of emphasis on meditation, right? We need to meditate. We need to practice mindfulness. But throughout the suttas, and many monks have said this too, many famous monks have said this, that without right view, meditation is just wandering, in the dark. You don't know where you're going. So mindfulness by itself, meditation by itself, bhavana by itself, doesn't mean anything, right? You need to know where you're going. If you just start walking and you don't know where you're walking to, maybe you'll get to the place somehow, maybe not. Most likely you won't get there. You need to know where you're going. So that's right view is so important. You need to understand the realities of life. That we're all going to get sick, old, and die, not get what we want, get what we don't want, and lose what we love. That everything changes, and we won't find any permanent happiness in it. Once we're able to see that, we don't hold on to things, right? We can have something nice. We don't want to have nice things. There was a lot of millionaires and kings who were followers of the Buddha. Buddha never told them to give up all their things and throw it away. Buddhists are not against being rich. Buddhists are not against people having a good time. But don't invest so much in it, Don't put all your eggs into that one basket. That basket's gonna break. Right? So we need to invest in something that is lasting, which is understanding reality. That's why there's so much emphasis nowadays in the world about education, right? Parents say, get an education, get an education. What's the whole point of getting an education? Because they want you to be happy. They want you to have a good life. They know that knowledge is power. So the Buddha also knows that knowledge is power, and he wants you to be happy. That's why he gives you these teachings, right? He wants we need to have right view to be able to live the happy life. Just like we need to study in order to be able to be successful in the everyday world. So that's why right view is so important right in the beginning. Coming to terms with these Four Noble Truths: suffering, the origin of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering. Understanding impermanence, understanding suffering and non-self. Once you have this perspective, you see the world differently, right? So then when something very tempting comes up that you would usually desire or cling to, or over-invest in it, or personalize or identify, you go, no, it's okay. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when someone's a jerk to you, instead of being mean or doing something reactionary, you're like, no, it's okay, right? Because you understand how things work. But if you don't understand how things work, you're going to be like those people that try to run away from the police, or I don't know if they have it up here in LA. There's a lot of shootings and crazy stuff. Even my little sister last year, she came to a stoplight and the person next to her was bothering her. She honked her horn and the person pulled out a gun on her. Yeah, that's Southern California. Here, I think you're probably better up here. But yeah, right? Why did that person pull out that gun? Well, they got upset. They got angry. They didn't do it because they were happy. I've never heard of a happy person doing anything like that, right? They got upset. There was some urge that came up in them, right? I don't like this girl. She honked at me. I gotta show her, like that you're not someone that you can mess around with, or something like that, right? They got offended. somehow. But once you understand reality, you won't go there. You'll see the urge come up in the beginning. You'll be like, no, no, thank you. I'm not going to identify with that anger. I'm not going to identify with that annoying girl, my sister, who was hogging her hard. No, not today. No, thank you. That is the power of this view. That's what many people are trying to get through meditation, right? When they meditate, they're trying to, oh, Bhante, I want patience, right? I want to be peaceful. I want equanimity. But you can only get that if you have right view. If you meditate without right view, you'll get other things like relaxation, sleepiness, things like that, right? People often come, oh, Bhante, I'm always falling asleep, right? All these problems. Yeah, if you don't really understand right view, then meditation becomes an escape. It just becomes like going to the spa. But if you have right view, then it gives that extra power. It gives that foundation, that framework to the practice of meditation, where you're able to see once your leg starts hurting in meditation, because everyone's legs hurt, even the monks, you know, but we just know how to be with it. You're like, oh, there it goes. You start seeing pain, 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 pain. And then after the pain lasts for a while, your body starts getting a little excited. And then after your body gets excited, the thoughts come. Like, oh, I should move my leg. Oh, but I don't want to make noise. Everyone's watching me. No one else has moved. I don't want to be the first one to move. Oh, this is so dumb. Why did I even come here? I could have been at the movies. Like the whole story starts to happen, right? That's because we still haven't understood dukkha, the suffering and the origin. Right there, you're like, I don't like this. I don't want this. It's all dukkha, remember? Getting what you don't want is dukkha. You're resisting that. So you're going to suffer. There can be pain without suffering. I was so amazed when this happened to me for the first time. And it's kind of an embarrassing story, but I'll say it because I think the nature of it, that it's embarrassing and it's at my own cost, that you'll know that it's truthful and that it really works. So it was around the first time that I was a monk. And when I first became a monk, I probably took it a little too far and I cut myself off from everything. I didn't talk to my mom. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a computer. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't even accepting donations. I just completely, you know, all the way full like meditation, asceticism, and closing myself off from the world. But then I realized that's not the way to do it, but I was still kind of clinging and practicing that way. But during that time, at the back of my temple, there's like a screen door and the screen and then this like glass door. And I wasn't mindful, even though I was practicing meditation the whole time. I lost my mindfulness and I stubbed my toe, and it's a metal railing. And I was rushing out. It's not like I was like, la, la, la. No, I was rushing out. And I hit myself, right? And I just felt like a throbbing. You know, my big toe on my right foot was throbbing and throbbing and throbbing. And then I felt like a warm feeling coming up my leg, feeling up my leg. And then I felt my breathing change. And I felt my heart change. And then I started laughing. And I started laughing because I wasn't angry. Or I wasn't blaming myself. Right? Usually if you get hurt, especially with something like that, people treat it like it's a person. Oh, you dumb door. Why did you do this to me? Right? Or they go, oh, why me, God, Buddha, why again? And they get all sad, right? They usually get angry or they get sad. But in that moment, I don't know why, maybe because I was the way I was practicing at that time. The pain was there. My foot, my toe got red. I felt the urge. It was uncomfortable. My breathing, my heart rate changed. But there was no suffering. There was pain, but no suffering. And that comes from practice and understanding. And I don't think it's something like, oh, I'm a special monk. I think anyone here can get there. But we need to, you know, put everything in order, right? And it all starts with understanding right view. Once we have right view, then we're able to proceed and then have these kind of experiences. And that was a liberating experience for me. You know, because then I said, whoa, that's such a dramatic situation, right? Like extreme example. So then I was able to translate that into or apply it when people started bothering me in real life. Because even when I was a monk, I would ride public transportation all the time on the bus. And a lot of weird stuff happens in LA on the bus. You know, can't say because the kids are here. A lot of weird things happens on the bus. And many times people have harassed me, have tried to attack me. And then even one time I got a death threat when I was in the bus by a gang member. But there was no suffering. There was no suffering because I wasn't angry, or I wasn't scared, or I wasn't saying, oh, why me? I didn't get sad. Because I didn't react. I knew that I was in danger, right? I knew what was happening, was fully aware of everything. And I could see even my body getting ready, like maybe I need to run, maybe I need to fight. But that whole emotional, cognitive, like soap opera that goes on, you know, it wasn't there. It wasn't there. I always like to put in a little bit of like real life experience into the teaching, because I was giving you a lot of theory, right? But I want to give you something for you to sink your teeth into, you know? So you can be like, oh wow, if I practice, then these things are achievable. And it's not because I'm a great meditator or a great monk or I have deep knowledge. No, I'm a very normal monk. Maybe I have a lot of things to work on too. And I think anyone can reach this if we really apply ourselves and we open our minds. So this is just talking about right view and how right view helps us in everyday lives, like hitting your toe, or people like bothering you on the train, or even getting a death threat. Right view will help you, because you'll see this thing. This situation is also impermanent. This situation is not under my control, really. And everyone experiences these type of things. You know, there isn't one person in here, there isn't a person that I know, and raise your hand if you've never experienced conflict in your life. That no one's ever shouted at you, no one's ever been mean to you, no one's ever stolen anything from you, no one's ever pushed you, no one has given you an angry look. Who is free from conflict? Who has lived a life that 100% free from conflict? No one, right? We all experience conflict. So what are we going to do the next time we come in conflict? What are we going to do the next time you stub your toe? Right? What are you going to do the next time maybe you scratch your car because you weren't driving carefully? Are you going to scream a bad word? What are you going to do, right? What are you going to do the next time someone cuts you off? Hopefully not what happened to my sister and pull out a gun on them, right? Right? What are you going to do the next time there's something very tempting in front of you? Right? It's very tempting maybe at your job, if you own your own business, to be a little tricky, right? What are you going to do if you're maybe in a not so good relationship with your partner, and then another opportunity presents itself? Will you be able to control yourself and not go down that hole, right, of cheating on your partner? So having this right view helps us in our everyday life. It's not theory. It's not academic. It's knowledge that helps us in all these things that we face in our everyday life. So then from right view comes right intention. That's the second step in the Noble Eightfold Path, called Samma Sankappa. What is right intention? The Buddha says the intention to let go, of renunciation. This is right intention. What's the wrong intention then? To be greedy, to want more, right? To covet, to possess, to hoard. That's the wrong intention. The right intention is to be charitable, right? To share, to give, to let go. Many people think that only monks practice. In Pali it's called nekkhamma. Nekkhamma means renunciation. And many people think that only monks practice nekkhamma. Only monks renounce, right? Because they leave their family, they leave their career, they shave off their hair, and they wear the robes, and they go live in the temple, and they're renouncing. They're the only ones who practice renunciation. But that's not true. Every time we share, every time we give, we're practicing letting go. Right? Every time you come here and you help the monks, every time you help your neighbors, you're sharing, you're letting go, because that time, that energy, those resources, you could have spent that on yourself. Right? You could have been somewhere else. It's Saturday night. There's a lot of good places in downtown San Diego. I was on Google Maps. I was like, oh, let me look for any good coffee shops. And I saw all these like nightclubs and bars and sports bars and restaurants. Like, there's a lot of things to do. But you gave that up. Oh, you're a renunciant too. You have the intention to let go. Right? At least for today, while you're in here, you also let go of like arguing with people. Hopefully you gave up gossiping, right? You gave up maybe not drinking. Hopefully you didn't drink before you came today, right? You gave up a lot of things. You also practice renunciation. You know, and I think sometimes maybe it's not communicated to you that much, but all of the monks appreciate how much you do, how much you let go, how much you sacrifice. Everyone here has made sacrifices, right? So everyone can practice this intention of letting go. I was so surprised. You know, I needed help with my tuition for my chaplaincy program. And one Upasika set up a GoFundMe. And within 3 days, they raised over $2,200 and something. You know, very fast. And I was surprised how generous people are. How much the intention of letting go and sharing is really out there when you give people the opportunity to do that. So that's nekkhamma. I just want to make that clear because usually when I talk about this renunciation intention, people think it's monks renouncing home. No, it just means that you stop, you let go of that self-centered intention, that egocentric intention about what am I going to eat today, what am I going to do today, what do I like today, and you start doing things for other people. That's letting go. So building that intention. And then comes the next one, the Buddha says, called avyapada, which literally means non-anger. But in other places, the Buddha talks about it in the positive, which means loving kindness. So the second type of intention is not only being, for us to be able to entertain being generous and letting go and not being greedy and renouncing, but also to have an intention of friendliness. Metta comes from Sanskrit maitri, which means friendliness. We translate it as loving kindness, but more literal, it means to be friendly. What does it mean to be friendly with people? It means not to see people as your enemies, right? So when you practice loving kindness, the practice of loving kindness is to be free from enemies. You no longer see anyone as an adversary. That's where we go, whether human or non-human, whether big or small, whether far or near, whether known or unknown, may all beings do well. You're not in competition with other beings anymore. You don't have rivals. You don't have enemies. That's what that friendliness is, metta. We have an intention of loving kindness. Then comes the third one. This loving kindness leads to the next one, which is very important because a lot of people get stuck in loving kindness, which is avihimsa, which literally means non-violence or non-cruelty. But the Buddha talks about it in the positive too. He talks as karuna, usually translated as compassion. But karuna, the first part, that karu, comes from kara in Pali, which means to do. Have any of you read the Karaniya Metta Sutta? Karaniya Metta Sutta. Karaniya means to do, what you should do. So karuna also comes from this to do, right? So compassion means action. It doesn't mean you have to go out there and try to save the world, right? But once you have this intention of friendliness and loving kindness, you do something. Even if it's only in your mind, you begin to generate more loving kindness, more compassion, wishing well, and then speaking compassionate words and compassionate actions. So these are the three intentions that we need to focus on. The intention of letting go, which just basically means not being focused on yourself and doing things for others. Generosity, charity. The intention of loving kindness, seeing everyone as your friend, wishing them all the best. Goodwill, universal goodwill towards all beings, having no enemies and no rivals. And compassion, right? Applying these two things into action into our everyday lives, wishing that beings can be free from suffering. Because we know that the Buddha is telling us beings don't have to suffer. The Buddha said that all beings can be free from suffering. That is the karuna. One of the titles that the Buddha has is Maha Karuniko. Maha means what? Great, right? Big. Karuniko means compassionate. So the Buddha is known as the most compassionate one. Maha Karuniko. Because he's giving you the tools for you to be free from your suffering. He's empowering you. He's giving you the power to be free, to overcome your problems. By giving you these teachings of suffering, the origin of suffering, freedom from suffering, and the path leading from suffering, which is the first part of the Noble Eightfold Path, right view. Then the right intention, an intention of letting go and renunciation, an intention of loving kindness, and an intention of compassion. And remember I said the last intention is compassion, karuna, which means to do. So guess what the next step is? What's going to require? It's going to require you to what? To do something, right? So then the third step in the Noble Eightfold Path is the right speech, samavacha. Now you need to start applying this realistic worldview about suffering and the origin of suffering and its freedom. And you start applying these intentions that you've been cultivating of renunciation and loving kindness and compassion. And now you start speaking to people with words, kind words, gentle words, truthful words, right? All the time, soft, nice. That means no more gossiping, no more lying, no more saying bad words, no more speaking strongly to people, like shouting at them, right? All these things we need to avoid because they're not kind. They're not samavacha. And then we continue with acting upon this compassionate intention to do something, to do good in the world. Samakamanta, good actions, like helping, doing things, which means not killing, not harming living beings, not stealing, not conducting sexual misconduct, and not taking drugs. And then that transforms into the way that we go about living our lives, which is sama ajiva. Right? So you actually have to apply your Buddhist practice into your job, into your career, into the sports, into anything that you do, you need to apply it. That's the ajiva. And the Buddha says that we need to only participate in those things that are wholesome, that don't bring harm to anyone, right? So then the Buddha said we shouldn't be like executioners, right? In a job where you hurt people, we shouldn't sell weapons, we shouldn't sell poisons, we shouldn't sell drugs, we shouldn't be butchers where they kill animals, and we shouldn't be part of like human trafficking and animal like trading and stuff like that in living beings. So we avoid all of that. Why? Because we see reality how it really is. We have an intention of letting go and not being egocentric. We have an intention of loving kindness and compassion, and that leads to right speech, right actions, and also right livelihood. So sometimes it's very convenient for some people to be very good Buddhists in the temple, right? Or maybe at home. But then you have some job that probably problematic, right? Problematic. So if you really want to progress in your meditation, if you really want to be free from suffering, you need to find a way to leave that career or that job. It might be difficult, right? But we need to think long term. Some people say, oh, Bhante, I'm going to lose a lot of money. It's going to be difficult for my life, right? A lot of problems are going to come about. Yes, short term, it will be difficult. But long term, you're investing in your long term happiness, right? That's one thing about in the US and in the West, we're so focused on like short term benefits all the time, right? Quarterly report. And then after that, you want like the half year report or this year's report, right? We want it now. And by doing that, we basically destroy the world because we don't think about the future. We don't think about future generations. Just look at what's happening to the people who are going to university right now, coming out. There's no jobs. The economy's so messed up. How are they going to get a house? Like, it's so difficult. They didn't cause this problem. Who caused the problem? The previous generations who are focused on the quarterly report, short-term gains. We caused that problem for all these young people. So our suffering is also conditioned like that. We don't care about ethics. We don't care about morals. I just want the money. I want that promotion. I want this. I want that. I want the title. People to see me who I am, to be known in my community. And that's why you suffer. You did that to yourself by thinking about life in that short term. So we need to think long term. That's the sama ajiva, as I said, the right livelihood. And I know it's easier said than done, and it's very easy for me to say to a person who doesn't work because I'm a monk, right? But that's why I have realistic expectations. You know, you can't do it tomorrow. Maybe you can't leave your job next month or next week. But you should set up a plan. If your job goes against your values, to eventually, maybe in 2 or 3 years, be able to get out of it and do something more wholesome, where you're not hurting living beings, like drugs, weapons, exploiting people, and doing things like that. We need to try to avoid that, because you're basically not only causing more suffering for yourself, but you're also limiting your practice. You can't advance in Buddhism if you're making other people suffer. And even if it's making yourself suffer, you can't advance. So please stop criticizing yourself. Please stop being judgmental. Sometimes our biggest enemy, our biggest obstacle in meditation and in Buddhism is ourselves. Some of you are lucky. You have like very, very good parents, friends, and family. They treat you so nice. But then people talk to me and they say, oh, Bhante, I'm not doing that good. I'm a loser because I don't have this degree. I don't have this car. My parents had these expectations for me and I didn't do it. And they start beating themselves up. That self-criticism, like being cruel to yourself, is not going to help you reach nirvana. And it's not helping the people around you. That doesn't do anything for the people around you. If they would know what you were thinking, they wouldn't want that for you. Someone who loves you doesn't want you to beat yourself up and to criticize yourself. They want you to care about yourself and be nice to yourself. So that's another way that we limit our practice, by beating ourselves up. And now we'll get to the last 3 steps. I think I still have some time. Which is the meditation part, which I'm pretty sure most of you kind of know already. Who here has never meditated? Buddhist meditation. Anyone? No one's done Buddhist meditation? Everyone? So everyone knows everyone's done Buddhist meditation, right? So all of you have some experience here. The first step in Buddhist meditation is called samavayama. And this is what sets up the ground for meditation. So before you even try to practice mindfulness, you need to do this. And samavayama consists of 4 parts. 1 is protecting your mind from unwholesome triggers, unwholesome influences, right? The Buddha says that we guard our eyes, we guard our ears, we guard our nose, we guard our mouth, we guard our body. Because these are the portals into our heart and our mind, right? All the things that are going to bother us, that make us angry or make us greedy or make us sad, come from like the outside in. We're always getting triggered from all these things, all the stimulus from the world, from the environment. So we need to be very careful. The Buddha says we need a guard. If you see something's tempting you, you need to look away instead of staring. The more you stare, the more you feed the lust and the passion for that thing, right? Or if someone you hate, the more you stare at them, the more you hate them, that ugly face they have, right? Even their smile is ugly, I don't like them. So we need to guard our senses. That's the first step. We need to get away from those things, right? So if you don't have to be around people that bring out the worst in you, and if you don't have to go to a place that's dangerous or brings out the worst in you, then don't go. Don't be there, right? Even if your friends and family are telling you to go there, do it. Don't do it. You're not obliged to put yourself in dangerous situations. In the moment, it doesn't seem dangerous, but long term, it'll have a very deep impact. So the first training we need to do in meditation is to protect our senses. That's why when you look at the Anapanasati Sutta, right, breathing meditation sutta, Satipatthana Sutta, what is the first instructions there? The monk leaves the village, goes into the forest, goes under a tree. Why? It's not like the tree is going to give you magical meditation powers, right? It's not like there's some special magic in the forest. But it's because you're removing all those distractions. You're removing all those things that make you react. It's a controlled environment for you to be able to train in the beginning, right? So we need to make some time to get off our cell phones, get off our tablets, get off television, get off WhatsApp. Don't be on WhatsApp all the time. Make some time to focus and guard yourself because all these things are influencing you. Our mind is so easy to influence. Have you seen a scary movie? Have you watched a scary movie before? No? What happened? Okay, to everyone here. If you watch a scary movie, what happens that night? Right? You start seeing like faces or stuff in the shadows. And then when you go to sleep, you might have a nightmare. Right? What is that telling you? Whatever you watch influences you. It influences you. Every song that you're listening to, that's influencing you. Every TV show, everything that you do is influencing your mind. So you're wondering, oh, why am I so greedy? Why am I so angry? Why am I so sensual? Why am I this? Why am I that? Just look at what you're watching. Look at what you're listening to. Right? Of course, if you watch like my older sister, she loves watching like those cold case files about those crazy murders and all that. And she's always paranoid about my nephews. Oh, something bad can happen to them. I'm like, of course you're going to be paranoid if all you're watching is like murders every day at night before you go to sleep. Everyone and any person would get influenced and be scared all the time that something's going to happen to their children. And I'm like, you need to stop watching them. She's like, I can't go to sleep without them. And then she has dreams about them and all that kind of stuff. But I think millions of people are like my sister, you know? It's just that, you know, murder things are her thing for some other people. Watching other adult stuff, right? Or watching like all this terrible stuff on the news or on the internet. All goes into your mind. So that's why the first step for meditation, formal practice in Samavayama, is to protect our senses. And Pali is called Indriya Samvara, for those of you that know that. So Indriya means your senses, and Samvara means to protect or to restrain. Right? So we need to protect our senses. That's the first thing. So if you want to have good meditation, you need to start retreating from all these things that are putting all this junk in your head. It's going to be difficult to meditate with all that stuff going on in your head. The next step is to eliminate an unwholesome thought as soon as it arises in the mind. Do we all do that? No. We like the unwholesome thoughts sometimes too, right? If someone was a jerk, we start fantasizing about how they're going to get theirs, right? I wish this would happen to this jerk. I wish they would get fired. And, you know, I wish their karma's going to get them. And you start like brewing all these unwholesome thoughts. And so, no, the Buddha says, as soon as that unwholesome thought comes up, you need to see it like if someone were to put a dead carcass on your body. Imagine someone, not even a human body, imagine someone would get like a dead possum from the street, bring it in here and put it on you. How quick would you be to take it off of you? You'd be like a flash, right? Like within the blink of an eye, that dead possum would be somewhere thrown off your body. So the Buddha says the same thing. When an unwholesome thought, an angry thought, a cruel thought, a lustful thought, a greedy thought, right? You see it like that. Oh, no, thank you. I don't need that. Don't entertain it. Don't go into that fantasy about, oh, you know, if only I wasn't married, that celebrity would be something, you know, I want to date that celebrity. No, don't go there. You have to see it like a dead carcass being thrown on you. I don't want it. No, thank you. You have to see the danger right away. It's because we don't see the danger. We're like, well, I'm not acting it out, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, out in the world, it doesn't matter, but it matters in your mind because we already know what happens when you watch a scary movie. So if you play movies in your own head, the same thing's gonna happen. It's the same thing as if you're watching a scary movie. If you play movies of violence, cruel movies in your mind, passionate movies, lustful movies, greedy movies, it's the same thing. So we need to be careful. The third step in meditation, in the beginning of meditation, then is to cultivate wholesome states of mind. This is called bhavana. So bhavana means actively throughout the day, choosing the thoughts you want to think instead of thinking whatever thought arises in the mind. I hope that wasn't too confusing. So, right, most of the time, thoughts are just happening, and you just like let it happen. No, Buddha says we need to actively choose our thoughts. So as soon as you wake up in the morning, start that series of dominoes that are gonna fall, right? Pick the pattern for your thinking. If you live with a family member or with a loved one, you're so lucky because it's so easy to do it. Right? Just wake up, I love you, you know? I appreciate you. Show some gratitude, then you start thinking already in a nice way, right? Instead of like, oh, what am I gonna get for breakfast? Where am I gonna go here? Where am I gonna go there? Very selfish, all about you, right? No, as soon as you wake up in the morning, you start thinking good thoughts, positive thoughts about how to help others. That is the bhavana. So many people think bhavana means like sitting nicely, like everyone's here, and then we all sit in silence and meditate. That's like a small part of bhavana. Bhavana means all the time generating wholesome states in your mind. From the moment that you wake up till you go to sleep. Buddha says this in the Satipatthana Sutta, the Mindfulness Sutta, and in the Kariniyametta Sutta, he says it, right? So whether we're practicing loving kindness or mindfulness, Buddha says at all times we're generating wholesome states of mind. From the moment that we wake up to when we go to sleep, whether we're standing, sitting, lying down, walking, whether eating or going to the bathroom, all the time, practicing loving kindness thoughts, all the time generating thoughts. Many people think, oh, the point of Buddhism or meditation is not to have any thoughts. That's not true. We're not trying to become vegetables or rocks, right? We're not giving out lobotomies here. That's not what we're trying to do in Buddhism. One time a lady, it was a long time ago, like 6 or 7 years ago, she sent me like a text message and she was going frantic about how things were all difficult and she's been meditating and she can't do anything if I could give her any advice. And then I said, imagine from the moment that you wake up to when you go to sleep, you're only thinking, may all beings be well and happy. Right? May they be happy, may they be healthy, may they be at peace, may they spend time with their loved ones, may they get to play with their friends and their pets. If you were thinking in this way, would you want to get rid of your thoughts? Would you want to stop thinking? She goes, no, Bhante. I said, why not? Oh, those are very nice thoughts. So I said, okay, thinking is not the problem. It's what you think. Right? What you think is the problem. So Buddha wants you to think the right way. Right? So thinking is good. Because of thinking, we have a nice shelter, we have the internet, we have cars. Thinking has given us so many nice things. But thinking can also destroy the world and cause wars and all kinds of horrible things, murders and travesties around the world. So Buddha wants us all the time to generate good thoughts. And then the last training in the Samavayama is when we get ready for meditation, is to continue this practice called Anurakana. Anurakana means maintenance. That just means keep doing this. Keep guarding your senses, keep eliminating unwholesome thoughts as soon as they arise, and also keep generating wholesome thoughts all the time. And the next steps are going to be real quick because the other one, I think everyone knows, mindfulness, right? Everyone here knows about mindfulness, right? Mindfulness. So there's a few things that you need to know about mindfulness. One is that mindfulness is not enough. Because look at everything that I already told you before we even got to mindfulness. You need to cover all of this before you get to mindfulness. Samasati. Right? Because in Buddhism, we know that everything is interdependent. Right? They're conditioned. Things come together. Paticca samuppada, right? So you can't have mindfulness floating out there in space by itself. It depends on the other 7 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. It's interconnected, all of them. Because of that, this. Because of this, that. That's what the Buddha taught, causation, right? So mindfulness cannot exist by its own. We need to develop these other factors. But mindfulness by itself is not enough. We need to be aware of what we're being mindful of and see if it's wholesome, right? Because you can be very mindfully like cheating a company out of money, right? You're super aware, you know everything. You have to be, if not, you're gonna be caught, right? So you can be a very mindful criminal, you can be a mindful assassin, right? That's like a sniper and shoot someone, you're very calm, very precise looking at the person, very mindful. No, mindfulness has to be combined with being able to see what's right and wrong. right? So if we were to go into the 7 factors of awakening, which I'm not going to do, but I'll give you the second step. It's called Dhamma Vichaya. So sati and then Dhamma Vichaya. Dhamma Vichaya means knowing what's kusala and akusala, what's wholesome and unwholesome. So when we're mindful, we're practicing mindfulness, we see our mind. Something unwholesome arises, you're aware. This is unwholesome. I need to get rid of it. You're practicing mindfulness, something wholesome arises. That's very nice. I need to stay with it. I need to stay with the state, right? So it's very important that in mindfulness, we always have discernment. We know what's right or wrong. I'm going to share this funny story from Ajahn Brahm. Are any of you familiar with Ajahn Brahm? Brahmavanzo from Australia? Yeah, it's about a month. Yeah. So he tells a story about, he says, okay, so a long time ago, there was a very rich lady. She had a mansion and she was going to go on vacation for a few days. And she told her security guard at the door, I'm going to leave for a few days. I'm going on vacation. I want you to be really mindful, okay? The whole time that I'm gone, you need to be 100% mindful. The security guard said, yes, madam, I'll be 100% mindful. I'll be mindful of everything. She leaves. After a few days, she comes back. And as soon as she goes in, she sees there's nowhere to sit. All the jewelry is gone. All the nice things, the pictures, everything, her whole house, everything's gone. There's nothing in there. And she tells the security guard, what happened? Didn't I tell you to be mindful? And he's like, yes, I was mindful. One robber coming in, one robber coming out. I was mindful. One robber getting the jewelry, taking it out. I was mindful the whole time. Is mindfulness enough? You think you can solve all your problems by being mindful? Like I said, you're like, oh, I'll mindfully cheat, I'll mindfully hurt people, I'll mindfully do all these bad things, right? So mindfulness is not enough. That's one misunderstanding with the whole mindfulness hype that we have in the West, right? In America, Canada, Australia, and Europe. Mindfulness will solve all your problems. Well, if you don't even know what's right from wrong, mindfulness will probably just help you be a worse person. And you can use it to become worse. I mean, you see mindfulness being taught in corporations that still exploit people. You see mindfulness being taught in the military and governments, organizations that are still doing the same bad things that they were doing before. So mindfulness hasn't changed them. Maybe they just got better at doing those bad things now, right? They're more efficient. And they can exploit their employees more if they make you all do mindfulness, mindful exploitation of employees, right? So mindfulness is not enough. We need to be able to discern. So this is a very brief explanation of mindfulness, what I want to add, and then some other time I'll give you all the other steps of mindfulness, of samasati. And then the last step is sama samadhi, right? Samadhi. Sama means like complete or unified or wholesome, and D is a state. So it's a state of mind that is complete, that is wholesome. Why? What is samadhi? Basically, samadhi is the absence of any unwholesome states, right? So samadhi means there's no lust, anger, sloth and torpor, anxiety and worry, and confusion in your mind. If you remove these kind of states or similar states in your mind, then you enter into samadhi. Samadhi means a pure state of mind, right? No matter what's going on, mind is calm, body is relaxed, always with an intention of loving kindness and compassion towards all beings, always aware of everything that's happening in this present moment. So that's basically what samadhi means. But if you're gonna get like more technical, then to get into like a very deep state of samadhi, we start talking about the jhanas, usually translated as absorptions or trances, right? And there's 4 jhanas, 4 deep levels of meditation, where the mind becomes very still, right? So still that in the sutta, sometimes there's like crazy things happening around and the person who's meditating doesn't even know, right? One time, one of the arahants was meditating and there's like a whole caravan of like hundreds of people crossing the river and the monks meditating by the river under the tree. And then one of the other monks comes and is like, hey, did you hear all of that? Like all that noise? It's like, I had no idea what was going on. He was in pure like samadhi. Samadhi is also, they have another word for samadhi called chitta vimutti. Chitta vimutti means liberation of mind or purification of mind. It's a temporary purification of mind. So sometimes if you were to get to these deep samadhi states, your mind at that time is like the mind of an arahant, but temporarily, right? So as soon as you come out of meditation, once again, you continue being a jerk. I've known a lot of people, including myself, when we're practicing in a meditation retreat, right? When we go to a temple, we're in a kuti, in a little hut, we're in the jungles, we're in the mountains. Everyone there is very nice. Then you come back to the real world, and everything that you learned goes out the window, right? Again, you get upset, all the problems come again. So you did reach some level, maybe of samadhi. You did, that was something good. That was true, but it was temporary. You couldn't stay in that state, right? If you want to stay in that state fully, that's called akupa. Akupa means it doesn't shake. Akupa chato vibhuti, and that's only the arahants, the fully awakened ones, the enlightened ones are always walking around in samadhi. 100% samadhi all the time. Also with the knowledge of reality. Not the knowledge how I told you today, where you're like, oh, this is reasonable, Bhante, this is logical, this makes a lot of sense, I accept your argument, this is what I read in the suttas. Not that type of understanding. Actually knowing it for themselves, experiencing for themselves the Four Noble Truths, impermanent, suffering, and non-self. They know it in themselves to be true. Thus the arahants. So they have that samadhi and they have this special knowledge. And that's what makes them, separates them from maybe us when we get into samadhi. So I just wanted to make that little distinction between when we go into samadhi and what the arahants go into samadhi. Very similar, almost the same, but theirs is permanent, ours is temporary. And theirs has knowledge, ours without knowledge, right? Yes, so we're coming close to the end. It's at an hour and a half, and it's almost an hour and a half. So I just want to do a quick review of everything that I shared, and then we're going to get to my favorite part, which is the Q&A. So I talked about the Four Noble Truths. Why? Because the Buddha is said to have said that he only teaches two things, suffering and the end of suffering. Right? And he taught this by sharing with us the Four Noble Truths, that there is suffering in the world, right? And there's birth, sickness, old age, and death, and all the other things. There is the cause of our suffering, which is this impulse, this reaction, this desire, this craving that's greedy and covetous. The one of aversion, right? I hate it, I dislike it, and the one of trying to disappear, of not being. Usually they say of annihilation, vibhavatanta. But good news, we can remove the source of our suffering, and if we remove the source of our suffering, we remove our suffering, and that is called nirvana, which is the highest happiness. So nirvana is to be happy. So everyone here who's practicing Buddhism is trying to be super happy. That's the point of being a Buddhist. It's not about being like very ascetic and torturing your body and being hardcore. No, it's about trying to reach true happiness. Happiness that doesn't depend on possessions or people or places or a certain time. Right? And then how do we get there? Through the Noble Eightfold Path, right? Which was right view, which is the Four Noble Truths. Then we have right intention, which is renunciation, loving kindness and compassion. Then right speech, which means wholesome speech. Then wholesome actions, wholesome livelihood. Then the four trainings for meditation, protecting your senses, eliminating unwholesome thoughts, generating wholesome thoughts, and maintaining this pattern, practicing mindfulness meditation, and reaching the samadhi states, right? So this is the path if you want to be super happy, ultra happy, absolutely happy, eternally happy, right? All these things. So Buddhism is about you reaching your happiness and your highest state of well-being. We focus on a lot of suffering, and it sounds negative in the beginning. But we need to face the truth. You don't want to go to your doctor and your doctor lie to you. There's probably some doctors in here. Hopefully you're not lying to your patients, right? You don't want to hear lies. You want the truth. Even if it's brutal, you have to. You have to know it. And then you need to know the origin, right? And what the prognosis is. Am I going to survive or not? Buddha says you're going to make it. Don't worry. But you need to follow the prescription, right? You need to follow the treatment. So we need to follow the treatment, the 8-step treatment, right? If you don't follow the treatment that the medical professional is giving to you, probably you're not going to recover, right? I know a lot of people with diabetes, they're supposed to be following a certain treatment. When no one's looking, I've seen them, right? And then they wonder why they don't get better. Well, they're not following the plan, right? So if in your spiritual practice, you see that you're not progressing, please follow the treatment, follow the prescription. The Buddha is also known as the doctor, as a doctor. You need to listen to the doctor. Your life, this life, the next life, and infinite lives depends on it, right? So it's even more severe than if you were to get a terminal diagnosis, because that's only for this life. But if you don't follow this prescription that the Buddha is giving you, you just keep on dying and dying and dying and dying and dying and suffering and suffering and suffering. And Buddha doesn't want that for you. He wants you to be happy. So I just want to use these last few minutes, even if I go over a little bit about this, just for some questions, for some clarification. So yes, if you have any questions, now is the time. And if someone asks the first question, usually from there, everyone else starts asking questions. So we need a brave person here. Yes.
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank you. I feel very grateful to be able to be here. So you mentioned about that incident where you stopped your toe. So even though we may not stop our toe every day, there is no lack of events.
Yes.
That make us react. So for an untrained mind, that event that happens, the trigger versus the reaction, that space between that is very, very small.
Yes.
And usually within that space is the freedom to choose lies. So what would be your advice to someone who is a lay person to maybe buy time or slow the reaction? Like, what is the first step that got you to that final state where when you stop your toe, you had the pain, but not the suffering?
Yeah. How do we stop babies from pooping and peeing on themselves? Parents have to be on them all the time, right? All throughout the day, from the moment that the child wakes up until they go to sleep. Parents always say, no, let's go to the little training toilet, right? Let's go over here. The parents always checking constantly, day after day after day after day. Then finally, after a few months of every day, all the time, throughout the day, training, they get the result, right? So what am I trying to say? It's about creating new patterns, right? So the only way we're able to get to that level is by having a consistent practice, right? If you come to the temple once a week and meditate, that's great. Please come every week and meditate with Bhante Chandima. Please meditate. But if you just leave it to a one-time event, you're not changing the pattern. It needs to be a daily practice, right? Does everyone brush their teeth every day? Yes. Does everyone shower every day? I hope so, right? Does everyone clean their mind every day? How about clean your mind once a week at least? Maybe some of you that come to the meditation program, that's the problem. Bad mental hygiene. And how do we practice good hygiene? Every day. Every day we put on clean clothes, every day we brush our teeth, every day we wash our face, we take a shower, every day we try to eat healthy, right? So there's no magic pill in Buddhism. It's just about repetitive action. Think about the Buddha as the Bodhisattva. Countless thousands of lives he had to do the same things in order to reach that level, right? And us too, to reach awakening for so long. So everything in Buddhism is just about studying the causes and conditions and continuing and continuing and continuing. And then over time, that seed is going to start sprouting, coming up. Then you'll see a stem, right? It's going to grow. Then you're going to start seeing like where the little flowers or the fruits come out. And then finally, after a long time, you'll see the flower bloom or you'll see the fruits come out and they're nice and ripe. So just be consistent. I trust everyone's practice. Just do more of what you're doing. You know, keep to it, even when it's difficult, even when you're on vacation, even when you're happy. A lot of people, they're very good at practicing when their life is falling apart. And they come to the temple and they practice. And then when they're happy, you don't see them for months, right? And they don't practice anymore. So you have this reservoir and then you let it deplete and you come back when you're an empty tank. All right, we should start raising taxes, right? Like they're going to raise the fuel tax now. I think they want to raise it here. Yeah, maybe if we taxed everyone here, then they would probably meditate more. We put a penalty to it. But no, so just practice more and you'll reach that level. So I think it's just a lack of consistency. We just need to take care of our mind the same way we take care of our body every day, little by little, Dhammapada, drop by drop, right? The glass will get full and the Dhammapada says. But the foolish person, they think they put a few drops, oh, this will never get full. Who cares? Throw the glass over. It's taking too long. No, we need to have patience, little by little, progressing. Yes. Anyone else? Yes.
Kind of also, you mentioned that the cause suffering is past.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it called past?
Mm-hmm.
How related to the experience of the North Star? In that experience, is it just experience or some other positive experience? But that's something how you experience.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Buddhism, the only way that to have purse is have someone who purse, anatta, right? Empty and no stuff, no experience of stuff. How is that from the cessation of that purse? Right? Is there any experience in that? Or there no experience whatsoever?
So thirst is conditioned by ignorance. Right? So we act, we react, we are impulsive. We act out of impulses and urges and desires and craving out of this thirst unconsciously. That's why I like using the word thirst. Because you don't wake up in the daytime or in the evening and say, oh, it's 5 o'clock now, I should be thirsty. We don't do it. There's no agent. There's no actor when there's thirstiness. There's no one that's making themselves be thirsty. The thirst just happens. Like when you have to go to the bathroom, you don't think, oh, now I should feel like my stomach and I have to go to no. You're just standing there, all of a sudden you have to go to the bathroom and you go. So it's impersonal.
Okay.
Right? It's just happening. So throughout the day, you see someone and unconsciously this thirst comes up of like, oh, that's a very attractive person right there. Very beautiful person. Or you go on your phone, oh, I hate that person. They're again on here talking their nonsense. It happens unconsciously. You don't decide, you know what? I don't like what this person's saying. I should feel angry about them and I should hate them. It doesn't happen that way. The feeling happens automatically, autonomously, right? It's just this process. So we remove this process by first becoming conscious of it. We become conscious of our habits. We become conscious of our thoughts, right? We become conscious of all these things, and then we stop feeding it. So instead of feeding these unwholesome patterns, we stop feeding them and we start feeding the wholesome patterns, right? So this is kind of like the very basic understanding of how to deal with this thirst.
So you say thirst is karma.
Hmm?
It's another word for karma.
Yes. Thirst definitely leads us to do wholesome to do unwholesome karma.
So Buddha don't have any more karma, but don't have any experience. Or whatsoever.
Yeah, so all the arahants, including the Buddha, they no longer create any new karma. They still have to experience the old karma from the past. You read in the sutta, sometimes the Buddha has a lot of back pain. Have you seen the Buddha talks about his back pain and he lays to the side and he tells someone else to teach? You know why that is? Well, according to one Jataka story, in the past, the Bodhisattva was a wrestler. And one of his wrestling moves was to break people's backs. So he was like a WWE wrestler or something like that, or UFC. And he used to get his opponents and break their backs or hurt their backs. So for many lives after it, he always had back pain. So even the Buddha couldn't escape the previous karma. But all beings, once they get rid of the thirst, the tanha, they stop creating new karma. And that's why they're free. They're no longer feeding. They're not feeding any karma. So we need to stop feeding all these unwholesome patterns.
Yes, in order to stop that, you have to feel it.
Equanimity?
Yeah, equanimity. And to have equanimity, that means to see no self.
At the deepest level, yes. In the beginning, it's just becoming aware, right? So the first step is becoming aware of these processes that we're not aware of. But yes, at the deepest level, right, we want to reach that like upeka ekagata, right? And then that you stop feeding these things, and then you get the three knowledges, the special knowledges of previous lives, other beings, karma, like the Buddha did, and then getting the knowledge of like paticca samuppada and Four Noble Truths, and then you're able to cut off, right? You reach that state of awakening. So there's many things that happen at that last level, but I feel like for a regular person, that's too far, right? We want something that you can use now when you leave. We don't know what's going to happen out there. It's a crazy world. Once you leave here, people will not be as nice as they are here. So the first step is just become aware. Become aware of your patterns. Become aware of your thinking. Become aware of how you speak. Become aware of how you act. Become aware of what you usually buy. Become aware of how you eat. Become aware of all these things. And if it's not working for you, it's not working for the people around you, then we need to change our patterns. We need to change our karma. Create wholesome karma, wholesome patterns that can be our bridge, right? We're building like a raft towards liberation. Any other questions? Maybe one more? Because I see the Atapirika's already here. Maybe one more? Yes.
How do we as spiritual people, among other spiritual people, reconcile with individuals that are doing unrighteous things in the name of spirituality, or doing things that are unkind and they don't recognize that it is unkind and not wanting to?
I think that is to take a compassionate kind of view, right? No one's perfect. People are very much products of their environment, products of their time, products of the people around them. So they might have a very wholesome intention, right? That's why they're spiritual. They're trying, but these patterns, their conditioning is so strong, right? And sometimes even after the fact, they're like, why did I do that? Like I shouldn't have, or maybe after many years, right? They feel bad about what they did. But, you know, there's so many influences in this world, and sometimes you get put in really hard positions. and you just do these very unwholesome things. I found that the best way for me to deal with those experiences, because I don't like hating people, right? Well, I don't like hating them either, because either we hate them, like, oh, they're such a bad person, or we pity them, oh, they're not really spiritual, you know. So I don't want to fall into that camp. So I really try to approach it with compassion and be like, you know, they're doing their best. I'm not making excuses for them. They're doing their best. They're on the way. Hopefully they get there faster. I want them to get there faster, right? Please, please. And then we send like good intentions. May you be there faster. You know, you overcome whatever problems are happening to you. So yeah, the Buddha said that anger is never overcome by anger. Right? Anger is only overcome by loving kindness. So we have to see that when people are doing cruel things and bad things, we shouldn't try to fight fire with fire, but fight it with water. It's cooling. Okay. Yeah.
On behalf of all the devotees, the sponsors of the happiness ceremony, we offer the filter to the mouths. Much merit, Bhante, for giving such a beautiful Dharma talk, and which everybody must apply to our lives, day-to-day lives. It's very, very good Dharma talk. Okay. And if I give that Dharma talk, it would take me about 2 hours. He quickly process data, delivers very fast. Is a very good skill. And he has been doing this, I think, for many, many lifetimes. That's why he, you know, this is one of his lifetime that he is a pretty smart. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much again, Bhante, for coming here from all the series. And it's very informative for our people. Very good Sanatha. And everybody is happy, right? On behalf of our congregation, I really respect you and pay my respect on behalf. Thank you, Bhante. Thank you very much. We wish him all the best and very good health and strength to practice more Dharma. And you are very noble service to the mankind. Say sadhu, sadhu. Okay, now we have a light dinner, not actually light. It's very heavy dinner, right? I really appreciate Tui and Chiba, and they brought very delicious soup. I did not eat, but I think delicious because I had eaten before. And also Dan and Mui, they brought, even we did not ask them, but they always volunteer to bring food whenever we have a ceremony here. Fried rice and noodles, I think. And also we have ordered some bread and some Sri Lankan fish and shrimp. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.